likely do you think a win is tonight, and why?
Ooh, that's a tough question right out of the gate. I would say it's probably a pretty long shot to win. Obviously, the Golden State Warriors have not lost at home in the playoffs so far this year. And, if you go back to 2015, the start of their reign atop the Western Conference, they don't lose many games at home. Whether it's Oracle or Chase, they don't lose many games at home. So it is going to be very, very tough. Memphis was a terrific recent example of that in a game when the Grizzlies were trying to stave off elimination. They played great for about 3.5 quarters, and then they slipped up for about 30 seconds midway through the fourth, and that was it. The game was over. So if you want to beat them in that building, you have to play, darn near perfect basketball for 48 minutes to do it. And it's possible, but, it's unlikely. And so because they're the underdog, they got to come out swinging early. They got to come out hot early. They have to adopt that mentality and play with that sense of desperation, and then, anything can happen.
Bobby, what is it too simplistic to just say, hey, knock down your shots, specifically your open shots, these three-pointers? They're getting a lot of good looks. They have all series long. When they knock them down, good things happen. Obviously, when they don't, bad things happen. Is it too simplistic to just say, hey, make your open shots, dang it?
Offensively, I don't think that's too simplistic at all. I mean, they're creating more than 40 open threes per game, open or wide open. They lead the league. The 4 conference finalist teams, Dallas is the only team in the conference finals with more than 55 wide open threes in the series. The Mavs have more than 100 such threes. So they're getting a bunch of open J's. They have to knock them down. I think the big issue, on that end of the floor has been shot making, but the things that are more under their control are on the defensive end. Defensive execution, not having miscommunications, lapses in communication or judgment, and then also finishing the possession with a good box out and a rebound. They got to focus on the details on defense, and then on offense, just make shots. You don't have to think too much about the offense. Just go out and play basketball. Defense is where they need to concentrate, because in the games where they've lost, it's been because of, just not dotting the I's, not crossing the T's on that end of the floor.
Bobby, is there anything the Mavericks can do to help them when it comes to the offensive and defensive glass? I mean, that was something that seemed like really aided Golden State getting those second and third chance possessions. And certainly Game 4 was a rarity where the Mavericks were able to win the rebounding battle. And we've seen them do that a handful of times during the postseason, but we know that they're undersized. I don't know if there's anything schematically that you think that Jason Kidd could do to try and help the Mavericks out in that area.
I mean, honestly, not really. I think it really is, this is an old adage, but I think it is just want to. It's just desire. In Game 4, the Warriors only had 6 offensive rebounds for the game. That's how many Andrew Wiggins got himself in Game 3, which is inexcusable, for a forward to get that many. That's just a matter of guys just not boxing out, not paying attention to detail and not finishing the play. But the Game 4 tape is basically full of Dorian Finney-Smith, who's a much smaller player, getting physical with Kevon Looney, finding him, putting a body on him, and backing up and boxing him out and giving Luka a chance to get the rebound while someone else is doing the same thing to Andrew Wiggins. As the series has gone on, Golden State is sending more and more guys to the offensive glass, taking advantage of, the Mavs, whether it's they're out of position from chasing around Steph and Clay or, just lack of effort or whatever. Golden State is smelling blood in the water, but now, the Mavs took care of business in Game 4, so do it again, and that's how Luka's rebounding numbers are going to, balloon like they did in Game 4, pulling down 14. It really is just a matter of want to, a matter of effort, and a matter of hustle, and, getting down dirty in the paint. That's the only way they're going to, be able to overcome any sort of size or strength disadvantage, especially whenever it's both Draymond and Kevon Looney on the floor. I mean, they just have to simply work harder than the Warriors.
It's Bobby Karalla here with you, Mavs.com, here on 105.3 The Fan. With the Warriors being so impressive, were they just pacing themselves for the last two-thirds of the season? And how close are they right now to what they were at their peak?
Well, they got off to that great start at the regular season, and then at the beginning of the regular season, and then Draymond got hurt right as Clay came back. And, when Clay first came back, he was kind of in and out of the lineup for a couple weeks there. He had some illness stuff going on, and he was trying to find his legs. And then he sort of kicked it into high gear, right down the stretch of the year. He had a really good, I think, back half of March into April. as Draymond was coming back as well. And so, they started red hot, like 30-6 or just something crazy. They were the number 1 seed in the West. And then they dropped off a little bit once everyone got hurt. And then they found their rhythm again. I think obviously the big three are much older now than they were, whenever they were in their heyday. And they don't have Kevin Durant, obviously. But it feels like off the bench, they got a lot more athletes. Guys like Jordan Poole, who's super fast, and obviously, kind of Steph light. But Andrew Wiggins and Otto Porter and Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody and even Juan Toscano and Damian Lee, they have so many wings, so many guards, so many shooters, and so many guys that can switch and be really versatile on the defensive end. And so, I think in some respects, they might not have as much talent, like top-end talent, but they're even a deeper team than they were a few years ago, I think, simply because they just have so many guys that can get out there and play defense at a really, really high level and guard the Lukas of the world, these big ball handlers, slow them down, and then get out in transition and run and space the floor and keep cutting the way that the Warriors always have. So, maybe not quite as much like A-plus talent, but they certainly got a lot of Bs, off the bench, and that's been really big for them in this series.
Bobby, you've talked a bunch about how the Warriors have tried to defend the Mavericks, and I know following you on the Twitter and stuff like that and hearing your podcast and stuff, the zone defenses and stuff like that. How much do you think that will be a factor tonight? Is that something that maybe the Warriors are thinking, well, we've got to maybe change this up, or do you see them going more zone tonight?
I could see them trying it. They sat in this 3-2 zone, which is really atypical. Normally if a team is going to play a zone in the NBA, they play a 2-3, so 2 on top and 3 on the bottom. But they sat in this 3-2 zone for a lot of Game 4, where you have 3 guys on top. And, that guy in the middle is usually Andrew Wiggins. And they're going to put their weaker defenders, Steph or Jordan Poole, or like in the fourth quarter it was Nemanja Bjelica, on the outside of this zone, where basically their job is to just find the nearest shooter and stay home on that guy. But when they went into that shape, it felt like the Mavs finally figured out, instead of having Luka at the top of the key during the beginning of these possessions, put him on the wing, or put Spencer Dinwiddie on the wing, your best slashers, your best, rim attackers on the wing, and they can just attack that little slot in the zone. If the Warriors are going to put their best defender at the top of the floor, right in the middle of the floor, then how about you put your best player where that guy isn't? And that's whenever Dallas really started having some success. So, I think it's something the Warriors could fall into if they are having a hard time guarding Luka one-on-one, or whenever Steph and Poole are out there, and they're trying to protect them on defense, because Poole especially is just, he has just been in foul trouble every game this series, it feels like. But, the Mavs found some answers. And so I'm not sure that's going to be a really reliable option for Golden State in this game, but it would not surprise me to at least see them try it early on, just to see, if they can have some better luck with it this time than in Game 4.
So, and we're talking with Bobby Karalla, Mavs.com here on with the GBag Nation on 105.3 The Fan, previewing Game 5 with the Warriors tonight. We know the Mavs are going to live and die by the 3. Jason Kidd's talked about that, but I loved what you just discussed with how the Mavericks adjusted against that 3-2 zone, and slashing towards the basket was something I think a lot of us love to see in that Game 4 win, because it does get frustrating watching a little bit of the stagnant play just standing around the three-point line. You think that's something that continues tonight, or is there maybe another added wrinkle that you could project from Jason Kidd offensively?
Well, I think it's definitely easier to attack the basket against a zone, because you're going up against a collection of players that are guarding a spot, not a man. And so, you're going to get their head turned the wrong way pretty easily just by moving around and swinging the ball. So if the Warriors are ever in either a 3-2 or a 2-3 or a box and one, and your name is Luka, Jalen, or Spencer, you have to get into the teeth of the defense and force them to rotate, and you're either going to be able to finish. If they don't, or if they do, you're going to get a practice gym jump shot. Where they've had a hard time is against the Warriors' man-to-man defense, specifically when Draymond is on the floor as the power forward or any other position besides center, because then he can sort of play free safety at the back line. You're already going to have Kevon Looney at the rim, but then you also have to worry about Draymond too. And in Game 4, when the Mavs really got things going toward the basket and right around the rim, it was when Draymond was off the floor, or when the Warriors were playing really small, or when they were in a zone. So any time when Draymond's either out of the game or they're not playing man-to-man, you have to attack, because, for as good as Andrew Wiggins has been, for as good as Kevon Looney's been, Those guys are not Draymond. Those guys cannot stay in front of Luka or, frankly, anybody else on the roster, especially Brunson and Dinwiddie, these playmakers. And so beat them, get to the basket, and make the Warriors react. The best way to create open jump shots is to beat your man and get right in the middle of the defense and see what happens. So, when they did that, they were able to get stuff at the basket and open jump shots. And whenever they're just swinging it around the perimeter, kind of hopelessly waiting for a crack in the dam to develop, that's not going to happen, and you're going to run out of time. So you're going to have to take a pretty bad shot. So be the aggressor, never stop, never stopping, keep going to the basket and make something happen, and I think they'll be okay.
Bobby, as much as we can talk about the offense and what the Mavs can do, I think the biggest opportunity is defense, but I don't know if they have the personnel to adjust in any way to try to keep them, down into the low 100s or maybe even a game under 100. I don't know how possible that is considering the pace they play and the efficiency they have, but how much easier is it going to be and how easy will it be to get a better rim protector next year? How much would that help the dynamics right now?
I'm not sure that would help very much right now, unless this rim protector is more of like a Maxi Kleber type, who can step out on the perimeter and switch. You look at the way Utah defended and the way that Phoenix defended the Mavs. If you have one of these like traditional rim protectors like Gobert or Ayton, these guys, they're incredible, but you have to defend a very specific way around them. To try and protect those guys from going one-on-one against Steph, basically with no protection behind them. So I think it's kind of tricky. I think the Mavs want more kind of versatile guys, more guys like Maxey that can guard multiple positions. And I thought what they did in Game 4 was very good. They kind of ended up protecting the basket a little better by not blitzing Steph. Guys like Maxey and even at times Luka just straight up switched one-on-one against Steph, and Steph got his, but Kevon Looney didn't do nearly as much, and the Warriors didn't have nearly as many uncontested layups like they did in Games 2 and 3. And so if you just force Steph to play one-on-one, yeah, you're going to let him score 30 points. Sometimes he's even going to maybe go for 40 or 50. But Kevon Looney's not going to score 21. Andrew Wiggins isn't going to score 27. Draymond's not going to have a bunch of lob dunks. And you can kind of contain the game to just a one-on-one set instead of this, worrying little, 4-on-3 blitzes that the Warriors will put on you by running Steph off all these screens, and you're trying to blitz and trap and recover and rotate and all that. So I think the best way in this series specifically to protect the basket is to play Steph one-on-one. And then moving forward, against everybody else, I think upgrading at center is probably something that is going to happen at some point. But when that happens, I think it's going to be for a player more like Maxey and less like, one of these other sort of traditional, conventional shot blockers.
Okay, my final question. I think Chiafalo might have one for you, and I feel like I need to apologize for this question before I even ask it. But you brought up Kevin Durant earlier. Okay, is that a pipe dream? Is that a fun discussion piece? Is it a realistic possibility if he would want out of Brooklyn and say, "Man, I'd really like to go play for the Mavs"? How asinine is that of a question for me to ask you, Bobby?
Oh, I don't even know if I can answer. Obviously, Adam Silver's tuned in right now, and I cannot afford a tampering fine.
Yeah.
So I can't say anything too specific. But the one thing that I will say for sure is, it's the classic Mavs line. They love stars. So if there's ever a situation where anything remotely possible to what you were saying or what anyone is implying on the internet, I'm sure that the Mavs are doing their due diligence because, Mark Cuban loves the A-listers. So that's all I can really say.
What if we were to ask you about some other guy named Shmevin Shmoran?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting player. Really interesting player for sure.
Hey, Bobby, how much of a fatigue factor has been to the detriment for the Mavericks this series? I know Bullock, Dodo, and Brunson have played a lot of playoff minutes. Do you think there's something to that, or is that overstated when you look at some of these discrepancies with their missing their shots, and it's like maybe these guys just don't have their legs?
Yeah, I think physical and mental fatigue is a pretty big factor, especially compared to the Warriors, who had a little more time off in that Memphis series and before this series started, whereas the Mavs just kind of had to get right to it because it went to 7 against Phoenix. But I think that's what made the fourth quarter the other night such a big bummer, because all of these guys were sitting at like 28 to 30 minutes played, and then all of a sudden the Warriors' deep reserves made it a game, and they all had to come back in. And so the Bullock, Finney, Luka, Brunson all played like 36 to 40 minutes in Game 4 in what should have been a blowout. So that's a big bummer. But hey, I mean, if you want to keep playing, you're going to have to keep playing. And unfortunately, the Mavs don't have 10 guys that they can constantly roll out. It's closer to 6 or 7. And so those 6 or 7 guys right now have to step up and keep playing, because the only other alternative is Cancun. And Cancun is nice, but winning games is nicer this time of year.